probably ready to figure out something and move on. And I hope what this amendment does will allow us to do that. And let me just tell you that this amendment is the product of days of work with interested stakeholders trying to build a consensus of something that we could come together on. And I think that we've done that. And this, while I supported the amendment on the floor to require additional training, I know that we had some distance between the original sponsors and that amendment. And so we've worked for the last several days to try to close that distance to a place that we're all comfortable with. And that's what this amendment is the product of. Because, again, as I said on the floor, I supported the concept of trying to make sure that we allowed additional protection for our kids on college campuses and really anywhere in society through the responsible exercise of the Second Amendment. And training was the big hang-up for a lot of us. Many of us felt like if we're going to put people into situations other than personal defense and personal protection, the traditional concealed carry permit training was just not adequate. So let me just and so those were the issues that we had to overcome. Is how do we make the right to practice your Second Amendment in these circumstances in a responsible way, something that we can come to agreement with. So this is what this amendment does. And let me just kind of go through the basics of this. As you all recall, the original amendment on the floor required 16 hours of training. This requires 8 hours of additional training. And really this amendment comes at it from a different process. And let me just tell you what the amendment does for those that supported additional training and were concerned about the bill, the good news, and then I'll tell you the things that some of you probably won't like. Because there was a give and take on this compromise in an effort to reach common ground. And the fact is, if we ask, folks who really would like no restriction to give some, then it's only fair that those who feel like this is already too loose should give some, and both sides did. So with regard to the training, this bill requires, again, 8 hours of training for someone with regard to active shooter if they want to get an endorsement on their license, which will allow them some additional privileges. And so this bill basically replaces the bill that is 1249 as most of the other amendments have done. So I'll try to summarize, and then if there's questions, we'll try to go through those things. So the first thing I want you to understand about this bill is it does have an additional training requirement. It's not as rigorous as the original amendment, up to 16 hours. And in fact, this bill will also allow the state police to design and give some credit, up to 4 hours of credit for people who have current licenses. But at the end of the day, they must have 8 hours total training in order to have privileges that are associated with this with this endorsement on the permit. This amendment also maintains some of the restrictions that were on the original 1249, which is kids will not be able to take and store their weapons in their dormitory rooms or residential facilities. I think that's a concern that many of us had, was training or no training. We had some concern about the leaving weapons lying around in the residential facilities. So this still has that prohibition on it. So that is it does, again, it lowers the age to 21, which is the age for a concealed carry. But let me just also say that 21-year-old kids are not going to be previously permitted. So a kid that age will have to get the entire 8 hours of training. They have no way to waive any of that because they have a current permit. So the hope again is that this additional training designed by the state police will be taken seriously and will provide the kind of responsible gun ownership that I know all of us want to see. And again, I want you to know that this is something that we've coordinated carefully with the NRA to make sure that they had agreement with this, and they are in agreement with it, and I'm sure they'll want to speak to it. Let me just say now that we told you what the bill does as far as the training requirements and some of the applications on the campus, let me tell you what else it does. Because when you get this endorsement on your permit, one of the things that those who weren't real excited about additional training asked for, and I think it was a fair ask, was if we get this additional training, we'd like some additional privileges. Similar to what they have in other states when they have an endorsement or enhanced training permit in those additional states. So this does allow for carry in other places. It allows for carry in places that have been traditionally off limits to concealed carry owners. And let me be clear, we're talking about people, we're not talking about everyone with a concealed carry permit, we're not talking about people without a concealed carry permit. We're talking about people, again, who've gone to the effort to go through this additional training and get this additional endorsement. They then will be able to carry in some places that have been traditionally off limits to concealed carry holders, such as public facilities, with the exception of prisons, K through 12, courtrooms, administrative hearings at DHF and DFNA. Those adversarial type of confrontational locations have been exempted from the bill, as has under the previous bill the hearing process through the university when they're doing discharge hearings that can be quite confrontational. So they will be able to carry in those facilities that traditionally, including, again, the state capitol, which is something I know that's been talked about for a long time. Again, we're talking about now there would have to be a process where they would have to have that endorsement on their permit to show that they are authorized to access those type of facilities that have traditionally been off limits. Private facilities. For instance, like right now, if you go into a Chili's restaurant with a concealed carry permit and you have to wait, you can't go sit in the bar area. This would have removed that restriction for these with this enhanced permit unless the private property owner posts that they don't want concealed carry on their premises. They still have the right to not have guns at all on their premises as they do under current law. The other thing it does, again, is it has some impact on private colleges. They can still not have guns on their campuses, just like many of them do today, but they would be required to post that, just as a private restaurant would be required to post in order to prevent someone with this enhanced license from being able to carry on that campus. So they would have to adopt a policy and put up the appropriate signage. Otherwise, again, it's a small change with their responsibilities to restrict the privileges of these people who've gone through this additional training. I think that I've covered the most. There are some immunity provisions in this bill with regard to people who are not going to be immune if they didn't post and something happens. But other than that, it is basically a bill now that allows for carry with additional training in what we would consider to be a responsible environment. We tried to remove, we didn't remove all, and nobody's ever going to agree on where you draw the line about what location should be off limits and what location should not be. We tried to draw the line, and I think we came to a place that is reasonable. And again, the thing that we always have to remind ourselves is the idea that putting a limit on someone to carry with a concealed permit, particularly if someone with 8 hours of training, is going to have a detrimental effect on somebody who has no license, does not really track with good logic. So that's a introduction of the amendment, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Again, I know it's a long amendment, but again, I think it really just kind of goes over the same bill that we've had, but expands it with regard to access and privileges, but also requires additional training, and I think keeps in place some reasonable restrictions on where folks can carry. I don't know if the Trent would like, this again is supported by both Representative Collins, Senator Garner, and the NRA is on board.